Um,
You got it.
More
Carl,
personal stuff, really.
very happy to
Okay.
see you. Sorry, I'm interrupting, but just want to say,
That's
very
all
happy
right.
to see you. Please continue.
No, because we're recording now. I don't want to
Oh,
talk about it. All
and
right,
we're
we're
on the
recording.
record again. Hi, Tess.
Good morning, Frode.
Yeah, it is morning for most of you.
Oh,
Carl,
sorry.
Carl, where are you in the America land? You're in the middle somewhere, right?
Yeah, Mississippi, Starkville. So I'm on Central Time. It
Okay,
is 10:30 here.
okay. That would be a clever thing for universities in America, actually, to have student time zones be different from the teachers, so you don't have to wake up so early. You have to think about that. Hi, Peter. So
So Tess,
today
we're
is
talking.
open office, and after we just chat for a bit, Dean is going to go into some cool future-related questions. So just give you a little heads up of where we're heading today. So it's semi-unthemed, right, Deanie?
I have kind of a theme. I was going to say, Tess, what are you thinking about presenting about?
Oh, well, I first talked. I like to call it my three uses for sort of VR as a writer, where I see it going in the far future, where it could be in the near future, and based on the talk we all had last week, how actually what you guys are working on would be a use to me as a writer and how it actually solves a problem I've been looking for some sort of platform or app to do for a little bit, or how it
And
possibly could.
have you been making VR projects before? I mean, what are there things I haven't seen anything?
No, so anyway, just I'm have been a television and film writer.
Mhm.
I write a series of novels. I have gotten into AI filmmaking in the last couple of years, and one of the things I've done is once I experienced VR, I thought, why would I ever want to watch TV again? And as a person who takes a script and develops it for television and writes murder mysteries and adapts books for TV and film, I thought this is what a wonderful way to experience um, an immersive television show, right? Because I have a thing with murder mystery where you have these like familiar worlds. All my books take place in Italy, for example. You could be following along with a I mean, this is literally all I was going to present.
Mhm.
I guess is that I was as soon as I saw VR, I thought this is how I want my books to make it to TV, so to speak. I want you to be following along with a show, and but you could stop and you could learn about wine if they're at a winery. You could take a tour of the Colosseum. Like the interactive aspects of this I think are endless. If you have these, Frodo brought up the Rookie. Obviously, there's all these long running franchise TV shows, and they have their familiar locations they go to. So you could be watching Midsummer Mysteries, and you could be in the pub instead. You could play a pub quiz against an AI or with a team from around the world. I think that these you can have a whole community and a whole world as well as experiencing what would be a traditional linear TV experience.
Yeah, those of us that were watched Bandersnatched that came
Yeah,
from the interactive e-lit world were just upset, surprised about how the press was talking about how cool it was and how new it was. It's like, no,
mm-hmm.
this has been going on for a long time and it's not really that interesting. It's not that
Yeah,
interesting. It's not new. And it's, something we've been doing for what, 40 years. But it's new on TV. That was the newness of it. So
it's almost like
but I
that's a
think
gate. Yeah, sorry, go
but I think
ahead.
what you're talking about is definitely new.
Yes, and I don't know that I don't know that the hardware is there yet. I don't know that the technology certainly it's a major undertaking in terms of filming it. And so for the last year or two, I have just been trying to find out who do I even talk to in this field. Everyone I talk to, I'm like, do I talk to someone at Apple? Who do I go to? Because and again, this is sort of my goal or where I really think I fit into a lot of these puzzles is I want to be the bridge between entertainment and tech because I don't feel they're talking to each other right now. And I feel that if we can get them to talk together, we can take all of this stuff to the next progression.
Yeah. Well, that's going to be an interesting presentation.
Well, yeah, I think I just gave you most of it, but we'll see. We'll talk more.
Well, today's discussion, we have 4 months left on the big project that we've been working on for the past year and a half, right? And we've got a presentation coming up at the Hypertext 25 conference, and then we have our formal presentation at the end of November. At the end of November, we have 1 month left of the project. So we have a month after that symposium presentation to fine tune and polish. That's kind of the timeline, right? So that means that we're at a point right now where I think it's important to talk about what other projects can come out of this kind of thing. Doesn't mean that's something that Frode and I are doing together but something that each of us can take with us. Because at the end of this project, we have to turn in a pretty significant report to the Sloan Foundation. I have not yet seen the report, and those of you who've written grants know that the reports are pretty substantial for this kind of grant. So it's going to be something that's about 20 to 30 pages long. And I'm imagining that one of the questions it's going to ask is, what's next? Like, what do you want to do? What would you imagine doing next? And we've got, it's not just been Frode and I and Fabienne working on this. It's been Mark and all of you in this room providing input. So the question I'm posing to you today is, where would you imagine if you could have all the money in the world, Tess, all of the support in the universe, where would you take the Future of Text project that we've been doing and build it out? Right? And that's imagining like what you're talking about, entertainment, computing, hypertext. Where are the opportunities for the next step? And I think that's what Sloan wants to see, that we've ignited imaginations. We've inspired people to think differently about text in this environment. That's what we promised in the grant. I don't want to wait till November to have this conversation. And what Frode and I are talking about right now for the symposium is exactly, is kind of that. So we sit down after the symposium that Friday, and those of us that have been able to work on this project for the past 2 years together have a conversation that helps develop that report, right? Because I'm going to need your input. But the question I'm posing to you now to think about between now and November is what's next. And I'd love to know from you folks what you think is possible for yourselves. If you can have your own teams, right? Your own people. And I'll start with Jim Strahan. Hi, Jim.
Jim and Fabienne just joined us, so just want to do a 5-second review of what Deanie said. It's been great work. Now we have to look at what's next. Is that fair, Deanie, for the two light guys?
Yeah.
Carl's got his hand up.
Okay, well, Jim was going to say something, but we'll go to Carl instead.
Oh, I think he was waving hi.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So, Carl, hi, darling. I'm glad you're back. We missed you.
I'll say there used to be a feature on YouTube. I don't know if it still exists, but if it does, I don't think anybody uses it. There was a feature called Reply, and you could post a video that was specifically a reply to somebody else's video. And then when someone would go to your video, it would be marked and tagged as a reply, and the original video that you were replying to was linked on that video page so that you could go to it and see the original, so that you didn't have to cut it up and say, well, here's all the context, because it was just there. Something like that for philosophy, for discussions of classical literature, for all of these things that require a lot of human interpretation and have a lot of different interpretations for them, religious texts, politics, things like that. There are important texts, and all of us know this. There are some books, there's some pieces of literature, some pieces of scripture that are vastly more cultural significance than other volumes, other books. And those things get discussed ad nauseum by dozens or hundreds of people over the years. And a lot of the times there's these like base level interpretations that are kind of one one leaf down from that original document, and then other people comment, reply, or refine those interpretations, and it filters out into these larger spreading leaves. Using VR to visualize that tree, have all of those links just built so that you, as the user, someone who's coming to this text for the first time, can look at these interpretations, these different discussions, and sort of open them up, listen to them if there's an audio track, or read them if they're text, and then sort of have all of that in one place. Seems like something that would be good for students, for scholars, for just new people who are, getting into literature for the first time. That kind of thing, that multimedia sort of thing, I think has good use cases for VR. VR is relatively weak for just text, but when you start mixing media with it gives you benefit that is harder to do on a PC, on a tablet, because you're constantly having to switch tabs or changing environments or just have multiple things up on multiple screens. You're doing a lot of context switching that you don't have to do if you're in a single VR environment with everything in front of you.
I see Fabian he's made a comment here. Let's see. Is there a file format for that kind of discussion? Carl. Peter is not sure what to use for text plus plus. Carl, do you want to respond to that? What kind of text?
I'm not sure what the question is asking.
Fabian asks, is there a file format? Is it a Word document? Is it PDF? I mean, I guess that's what he's asking. Like how and what content, what format would you want that document to be in?
What I want that to be in?
Imagine it to be in.
Sorry, hi everyone. I guess you can hear me now. Yes, it's kind of the same question I ask boringly every time. It's like, yes, I get the problem, and the fastest way for us, I guess, to explore this is the recording of the process. Let's say if it's a discussion there, is it audio files? Is it text file? Is it like an XML file that does both the audio and maybe some text there? I remember, like, if I understood correctly, Carl, it reminds me a little bit of Wave by Google, like a couple of years ago, where you had like discussion within discussions, and you could do quite a in-depth argumentation. That has been, maybe actually it was based on it. Maybe the YouTube product or the feature you mentioned was based on it. I'm not sure. But then again, it's like, is there an example of a session, of a discussion like that happened in the past that we can put in our system and then see indeed how can we show this, manipulate it, explore it?
I mean, the first like specific example that came to my mind would have been one of Plato's lectures or thought experiments. That then other major philosophers had, speeches or written up like critiques or variations of. And then in the modern day, we have books, or we have papers, or we have speeches, or we have videos of people going over those variations and also sub variations underneath that, new interpretations. So it would necessarily be mixed media, and it would have to be something where if the link tree or the relational, like the fact that all of those things are linked together is not just like in the video title or the description, the actual hard links to those resources, maybe something that has to be built kind of like a bibliography. But the medium would inherently be multimedia. It would be audio, video, and text.
Okay. I've written that down. Thank you, Carl. Ken, you have your hand up.
Yeah. So by the way, I have to go probably in about 12 minutes or something because I have a conflicting meeting. But I wanted to talk to this question in terms of everything that we're doing in our lab now in mixed reality. We don't really do much in virtual reality, but in mixed reality, I'm trying to replicate so that as much as possible, we're building the same tools when you're in a Zoom meeting. So you can go back and forth and say, okay, I'm dealing with text that's floating here. as Carl was talking about, or I can deal with text that's floating here, and we keep as much as possible the same principles, and we're doing everything in WebXR. So I wanted to show like a little demo of, this is just the beginning of where we are in kind of trying to pull those things together. So I think I should be able to go into, where is share? There it is, share. I'll just share my screen. There we go. I'll share my screen, and you should be able to see this. This is just me, but I'm going to hold up, for example, a an object, and in the other space, the object becomes a window, and I can look into another world when I'm in that other space. And so that way I can sort of bring things into the conversation. And I'm trying to think about this also in terms of my teaching, because when I teach, sometimes I teach in person, but sometimes I teach on Zoom. Let's see if we share the screen again, and I'll make this, I don't know how much this will work, but we can try. Oops, I have to share the whole screen. To share the whole screen, it turns out. All right, I'll do that, no problem. And then if this works, the idea would be I introduce topics, and as I introduce topics, I can sort of bring those topics like into the space, like as though I'm in mixed reality. And then if I'm interested in telling the students, hey, we're interested in text, we're interested specifically in maybe editing the text. So here, for example, that's the code that corresponds to that, and you could go edit that code, et cetera, and I could start using a text editor. And as I use the text editor, you start moving around and saying, oh, I want to change that to say, 2 times time or something like that. So this notion that I'm in that enhanced world when I'm on a Zoom meeting, and then it becomes a bridge to, oh, if we're in mixed reality, we've already established all of these things.
That's very useful, especially if you're teaching 3D modeling.
Yeah, and I teach 3D computer graphics. So
yeah, it's hard because we're talking about putting my program online and as a online degree. And my argument is we can't teach VR easily, 3D modeling easily in these environments. That would definitely help. So very, very interesting. Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you, Ken. Tom has his hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on a number of things that I've heard, and actually I just read the thing that Frode sent around this morning. I think one of the next things we ought to be thinking about is let's think about this as from a McLuhan-esque perspective. We are transitioning across multiple layers of narrative and different kinds of narrative, and think about how that changes the stories we can tell or the stories we should tell, because I think that's the most important thing. As a photographer, I don't care what camera was used. I don't care what lens or anything else was used. I care about the vision of the photographer and what that vision shows about how they see the world. As a writer, same thing. When it comes to written text, I care about the vision of that person. And the same thing goes on the other narrative media, from the spectrum of writing to television to movies or whatever, to XR. I think those are all important. I mean, we're not going to get rid of television because of XR. I think we'll augment in different ways, and some things will work better in XR and other things will work better in the more traditional media. I mean, part of the creative drive is working within the constraints that you've got, but those constraints should be able to free flow across multiple media. And it's going to be really important to understand how that impacts our various capabilities of storytelling. I think that's something, we've been so lost in the technical details of the platform and the functional details of the platform that I think sometimes we lose a little sight of, and I think that's kind of a next step in terms of thinking about this. It's not just about what it is, but how do we use it? How does it change what we do? How does it change what we say? This is true of every technology, but some sort of spectrum as we're adding more and more tools to our storytelling toolbox. When is it good to use XR? When should you write it down? When should you take a still picture? When should you do augmented reality? When should you do, like Ken was just doing? Should you do video or whatever? I mean, there's all these tools that we have now. And I think one of the problems is 50 years ago, most of us operated in text. And if we operated in film, it was a slow and cumbersome process. And that is a totally different world now. And whether we're talking about moving pictures or still pictures or whatever. So how does this affect how we talk to each other? How do we connect as human beings? So I think that's an important next step that we need to be thinking about.
Thank you, Tom.
Yep.
Frodo has his hand up.
Yeah, Tom. So the questions at the end there, I agree with very much. Your assertion in the beginning is interesting. I wrote a piece this morning on the Turing test, and it went into cameras. So on that point, I disagree with you, which is what is fun with our discussion. So if you want to read the article, I think I emailed it to all of you. Please do. Obviously, comments would be great, go in the book, but just on the idea of photography. This weekend was the Notting Hill Carnival. I was there with Emily's auntie from Japan the first time, Edgar's first time. It was absolutely wonderful. 2 million people having fun. And then I went through the pictures later, and for me, the lens really matters. The color really matters. So for me, those pictures cannot have been taken with a different lens or a different camera. The reason I find this very, very Tess, I'll make sure. Actually, Tess in the background, just email me and I'll make sure you're added. So the reason I think this has become a very pertinent point is that I also took pictures at a friend's wedding a couple of weeks ago. And the normal thing, we've all taken pictures for people and giving them. Something really interesting happens. They will say, oh my God, they're so beautiful and fantastic, thank you. And then, you will maybe easily say, oh, it's a good camera. We make excuses. We say it's the tool. Oh, it's a great lens, whatever, right? However, when people look at the picture and say, wow, the lens you used there clearly made it nice, it feels like they've engaged with it. So that is actually a good thing. So that makes me feel like they're looking at it like I do. So I have a dream that when someone, it's a stupid dream, I accept, but so for instance, today, Author version 11 was released in the App Store. It took me 6 months and a huge amount of money to make it, so I'm very, very excited. It would be really, really lovely if when someone reads something to think a little bit about, wow, what tools did the author have available to generate these thoughts and these words? I can imagine many people bristling at that, and that's okay, I'm a tool developer. So it then goes further. The word camera means room, obviously, camera obscura, we all know that. And only this morning did I put it together. XR is a space. It's a room. It's a roomless space. So similarly to how I, as a word processing snob, as I would like people to consider when they read something, what tools was used to write it, how amazing would it be if we can build XR environments that are so powerful for human thought that when someone experiences the product, they actually will think, what environment do they use to think that? So in summary, what would it mean for a thinking space to be recognized as integral to the quality of the ideas generated within it? I think that's an important thing, because if that's not important, then we have absolutely no need for anything but a pen and pencil. Right? If we don't accept that the tools change the scaffolding, the framework, the opportunity, and the limitations of how we write, then what is the point of making any further tools? Thank you, Tom, for letting me get that off my chest.
Couldn't we argue? I mean, this is what we've been arguing for a long time in the humanities, that the library is a knowledge space, brick and mortar, to represent the books, the physical media that people were producing, right? With that, whatever tools they had, Gutenberg Press, now computers. and it was holding these physical objects. And what we've been trying to do in the lab is build a virtual library to hold virtual and digital objects, things that don't have a physical manifestation, instantiation. So we've been doing this for quite a while, right? We know that the space reflects the objects and the ideas that are generated for it, because of it. It's a result of it, right? So I think you've made a good point, is what I'm trying to say. Fabian has had his hand up, and so has Peter. I believe Tess is up. Okay, now the order is Fabian, Tess, Tom, and Peter. So Fabian, take
See
it
you
away.
later, Ken, and hi, Fabian.
Bye, Ken.
Hello. To briefly answer the question, because that's going to be no surprise for most of you familiar with the work, is to me the some of the focus should be on programming, namely how to scaffold the programming of the environment, not just manipulating text, but challenging more from within XR. And I think it's again one of the opportunity of WebXR, that you don't need a whole pipeline of Unity and all this. You're in the page and you can reshape it from within. That would be my suggestion, and potentially also to link back with what's been said before, the collaborative aspect, in the sense that not everybody's a developer. Sometimes you need a developer and a 3D artist or somebody who is using the tool. So I think that's there. And a lot of building blocks are there now, like syntax highlighting, keyboard, putting things everywhere and anywhere. So that would be my suggestion. And to take a step back, basically on the two last points, or the three even last points.
One or two pork chops. You're going to your book club tomorrow, and I'm having.
Thank you. And yes, it's for an anecdote also. I helped a friend, or actually the kids of a friend, make a video for a welcome video. The kids are 9, 6, and 5 years old, and they are. That's why I put media literacy as a kind of a harsh, quick summary in the chat. Is I think regardless of VR first, AR first, this project. Platforms like TikTok, etc. To me, that's the core aspect is media literacy, and I suggested, and maybe I'm wrong, but before the kids started recording, because they were of course super excited to just record, like press the red button in the camera and go record, is what's the audience? So start to have a discussion. No medium there, just a discussion between ourselves. And then eventually, when it became too complex, then we had to put it down. So we had to use sketching, we had to use drawing on paper, we had to eventually use words to say, hey, that is like a frame we're going to record. And then we had to basically do a storyboard. So we had to use a process like storyboarding, and then tools like pen and paper, literacy in terms of being able to read and write. Numbering also, then cutting the storyboard to reshuffle the order. So to me, that's the continuation of all this. Like, we're using different media to play with other media, and there is no, I don't know, I don't feel any stress about it. Sometimes I feel, maybe I'm exaggerating, but I feel that there is some kind of tension of stress, so it should be this or that medium over another. And there, in order to make a video and have, again, very young kids being able to make a video that makes sense, it's not just a cute little thing, like they were talking to an audience, to people, not a public video, but it's quite interesting. And I think being able to juggle with different media to help other media, or even craft other media, hopefully better ones for different tasks. Yeah, I think it's more like empowering and liberating.
That's great, Fabian. Thank you so much for reminding us about programming. Tools can't happen without someone to make them. Good point. We have Tess, please.
So this is, I think this answers your question of what's next, and also I think what we're talking about seeing as what about like how the tools help us think. And it's kind of what I was going to talk about later on in September, but it just feels very relevant here, is that when I saw the cube demoed last week, I have been on this quest for the last like couple of months um, to find a tool. Again, I have 6 books in my series, or almost 6 books in my series, and I'm starting to want something with historical knowledge of my series, and without me having to go back through the books and find where all the different characters are mentioned, find where all the plot points happen with the word count. I'd love to have this thing where all the manuscripts are all there, and I have different search parameters. If have I used this name before? Have I used this character before? What's this character's history? Can we compare the structure of the books? Where does the first kill happen? Just whatever I need it to do. And and having something, I know it came up last week that it's sort of like, you want something to help academics. And I said something like, well, can they walk around while they do it? And we were saying, well, some people might not have the ability to walk around while they do it. They might be in a confined space or something. So the idea that I can have this room with my work and visualize it in different ways to both help me pragmatically wrap my head around things, but also perhaps inspire me as well, would be a really beneficial tool to myself and to others, whether you're working on one manuscript or a series of them. I write a lot of articles. Well, have I talked about this before? When have I talked about it before? What context? Should I link it, or am I retreading the same ground? I think it'd be what you guys are working on has amazing applications for writers.
Yeah, thank you. All right, Tom. Then Peter.
I'll be short. I just wanted to say, Froda, I was kind of reacting to the thing you sent around, so I did read it. I will say this is that I think the difference between what you're saying and what I'm saying is I'm looking at it from the perspective of a creator and a storyteller, and I want to be able to surf media when it comes to being a storyteller. And in that sense, I want those step stools to be invisible. I mean, we don't think about a step stool when we have to climb up to the top of the shelf, hopefully. Hopefully we don't, because otherwise it's rickety and we're about to fall and hurt ourselves. But I look at every technology as a step stool, and a camera is a step stool for realizing visual visions. And I want the right camera at the right moment for what I'm doing. And part of the skill of being a photographer is knowing which one to select. So, and I don't care if people ask me about it afterwards, I'm happy to share. But what I was mainly getting at is that, we need to be thinking about XR in the same sense. I don't want to think I'm an XR. I want to think about, okay, I have this space to create. Now, how do I do it? What do I do with this space? And that's a really tough challenge at any number of different media. We can have much longer discussion about that. So I just wanted to clarify that.
I think Frodo wants to respond to that.
I do. I think it comes down to the degree of control we want.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, if I'm going to America, I want to get on a plane, sit down, and arrive in America. But the control I have there is limited to an airport. If I want to go from Portland to Vancouver, Washington, and I want to get to a specific restaurant, I either have to pay money for an Uber, and they'll drop me off wherever they want, pick me up whenever they want, or I need the skill to learn to drive or use a bicycle. I really think it's the same here, and I think we need to consider the whole package. Absolutely agree with you, as I think we all do. Put on a headset, something should be possible to do. But I think we would be amiss if we don't always also allow for those people who want to invest. Somebody talked about computer games higher up. The amount of learning for the different keys and combinations and moves and all of that, even in a normal, mainstream, not super nerdy game, is crazy, right? And then we deal with most word processors, which have icons on the screen like you're a child clicking on a candy thing. Crazy. So I hope that we will manage to do the magic of XR, get the basics, but if you're really specialist, you can do this and this and that, and you spawn and things are magic, and it's very, very exciting. So I'm very grateful for these back and forth discussions, and thank you for letting me go in there, Deanie, but Peter, over to you.
Okay, Peter,
Okay.
it's your turn.
Okay, going back to Fabian and Ken's points to bringing code into the environment, I'd like to commend this book to you. Oh, let's see, is it? No, that's bizarre. Okay,
Can
all right,
almost see
can't quite
Peter
see
in
it.
your background
Yeah.
Hasn't been popularly seen.
All right, you know what? I
Maybe.
will. The title of the book is Software Visualization, Programming as a Multimedia Experience, edited by John Statsko, John Dominic, Mark H. Brown, and Blaine A. Price, with a foreword by Jim Foley, MIT Press, and the ISBN is 0-262-19395-7. But anyhow, it's a absolutely great text. Unfortunately, it keeps getting blotted out by the green screen. In future, people will make sure that their book covers do not have sufficient green in them to cause these issues. Another point, going back to talking about libraries as physical spaces, beyond having the physicality of being able to browse the shelves, I've also found many instances where the material on the shelves caused temporary co-location of individuals who wouldn't otherwise have met. So I've had very striking conversations on occasion in the stacks where I'm drawn to the same selection of text as someone else who I would not have otherwise met, but for the fact that the library brought them to the same physical location. So I think we need to try to capture that element in XR.
Thank you, Peter. I've got that down. Fabian has his hand up again.
Yes, thank you. It's a new hand indeed. It's
New
more of
hand.
the same, to be honest. It's one of the cool thing we're doing now is being able to bring documents, and it's rare. I think I actually know very few XR experiments that do that. Usually they give you the environment and either you start from nothing or everything is basically settled and you evolve in it. But here we can drag and drop stuff. So I think that's really important, including like your own document, including text-based one. But also, so to me, this is very exciting. But the saddest part is it's very basic. It's very primitive. And if you update your document, then the document in XR might not get updated. You have to drag and drop again. You don't want to leave the headset. We don't support every format on Earth. We never will. But of course, the more format we have, it's like having a new color in your palette. You can do more basically. So that would be also, I think, an interesting part of future direction. Either how to do it more efficiently, like supporting more formats, or how to get other people to do it. Like, for example, having collaborators that might not care about XR, but they want to have their content in. We discussed about libraries. Like, do we want to imagine having not the content of the library itself, of course, but just the index, like just being able to browse through the content of the library before you get there to pick the book. That itself, I think, would be very interesting as a kind of data exploration to do. One of my fondest memory is really, I'm going to sound like the biggest of nerd, but it is browsing through a physical library, just being there. And it is for the library itself, the architecture, and the hope, to be honest, of finding a new document. But the kind of quest through the knowledge space, and here being able to have, let's say, a library as a collaborator to give us their index and bring a new way to go through it. I think that would be very exciting. But again, it's being able to do this as kind of Lego blocks where you have one document that is unrelated and then another and combining them, and then you have this unknown new thing. That's to me more of this would be great.
Thank you, Fabian. So my lab's already working in one direction with this, right? We're taking the XR programming, WebXR, and we're developing objects that you can interact with that are museum objects that are physical. And you're able to enter into the VR space and interact with them. So we've already been doing that for the past, 6 months or so. And so we're going to continue with that in that vein. But the other thing that I think is really interesting is that I fell in love with the spatial persona that Apple Vision Pro offers. I just think it's really cool. And it's surprising to me that there's not been a lot of work done to improve it, to move it forward to the next step. Because I see that as a way to get multiple people in the space and interacting with the objects, with the text, with whatever it is we have in that space from remotely, right, in the same space. And I would love to see more of that work done. I think that holds a lot of promise. And like I said, it's surprising to me that we have not seen that promoted by Apple or anything built out of that further than the kind of rudimentary experience that they offered a year ago, right? But I think that's something that I think has a lot of possibility, especially for teaching, training, and that type of thing. So it has good economic, financial rewards, which I'm surprised that Apple hasn't jumped on. And also entertainment as well, Tess. So, all right, I'll drop it in. Frodo, you're next. Go ahead.
On all those notes, I'm really, 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 really disappointed with Apple at the moment. Really, really. I mean, we're seeing Steve Jobs' ideas petered out, and now we are at Tim, who is cooking financially and doing nice enclosures and software. But the new glass interface can be discussed forever, but just the fact that it has really huge rounded corners. I'm testing Mac OS 26 on a small machine, and because they're so huge, they make it look like toddler toys. Right? It's really, really bizarre. It takes a seriousness. Thank you, Peter Demetrius, for your emotion there. It ruins it. And also in XR, Dini, when I first released Author for XR for the headset native, I could get rid of the top. I didn't need a bar on there. Because when I'm sitting working, whether I'm in a virtual environment or in a coffee shop, I'm not sure if everyone's the same, but it's nice to be able to see over the paper if you want to. Not all the time, but if you want to. But because there's such a huge, it's literally in your face is this big, and it now cannot be gotten rid of. It really says to me that Apple doesn't understand the kind of users we're talking about, people who care about their knowledge. It really is about the initial experience, and that's why they invested so much in all the concerts. Some of them are absolutely brilliant. But, I now have to decide how to upgrade Author. I don't want it to be awful. And it's really, really hard within the APIs and all the design stuff they give me to do it. So we have to do this. Danny and I are 100% shared on the goal here. But, why Apple isn't doing it, it's not that kind of company anymore. They're not trying to do the bicycle for the mind and all of that. It's just not what they do. And the next will be the augmented glasses. You can go to a party and be told who you're talking to. Fine for some situations, but not for this. And then really important, I probably will be saying the obvious, but when we talk about the libraries, we had a session which was badly labeled by me, memory palaces. Of course, it wasn't really about memory palaces. It was about spatial organization. And one of the key things there is, yes, you should be able to have a completely normal looking library if you want, and then you should be able to change it. That's kind of the magic. You should be able to have a completely non-Euclidean space for your information. That is really what we're moving towards. But if you want to have for a certain thing, your office with stuff there, no problem. But you have to be able to change it. And Fabienne brought up something I think it's easy to ignore. Bringing your own documents is so crucial because that means owning your information. Once things are on a database, they tend to be on someone else's database. I mean, your Google Docs are not yours. I just saw YouTube are editing videos without people's consent, and servers go down. So to be able to take documents in and have multiple views of them, some very plain, some very advanced, is amazing. And I hope we will, after the ACM, get back to discussions around the cube, because in one way, it's of course the most boring thing possible. It is also quite tangible. So if we can use that as an argument to completely throw it away, as long as it's a reasoned argument, that'll be exciting too. So that was a little bit of my responses. Thank you.
Any other ideas? We've had several ideas about moving forward, what people would be doing if they could write grant. Never mind. Fruta, what are you going to show the globe?
No. Well, until someone has something to say, since it was quiet. No, I just wanted to point out, as you all know, the globe is weird. It's not a Mercator flat thing. That's very artificial. Just things like this. And yeah, Fabienne, I see you're talking. Please go on.
I was finishing up. I was saying something when you interrupted. Let me finish and we'll go to Fabienne, okay?
Yeah, no, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. It was just a visual backdrop in the beginning.
Got it. That's great. Yeah. So what I was saying was I'm writing down ideas that you guys are presenting, right? We're going to be developing this into a list for Sloan. So if there's ideas that you're having after this meeting, please send them on, right? And send them to the listserv that Froda, or send them to Froda so he can disperse them. But be thinking between now and November about real specific ideas that you think would be useful. And Sloan might be interested in funding something like this. Fabienne, go ahead.
So yeah, to go back on that actually, and the criticism, which I of course believe is justified, about not losing our document by hosting it on someone else's server, especially if they're modified. I'm not even going to touch that, but sending a document on a server and then the person who was supposed to safeguard it, changing it without my prior approval, yeah, I don't even know. This makes no sense to me. So imagining that I host my own content, of course, and Peter, you mentioned local first. Yes, local first is good, but then if we collaborate, as we're trying to do now, it might not be enough. And there are alternatives like self-hosting, where you have your own server. There are new ways to make it easier, a bit easier to do that, so that if you don't have the technical expertise, you might self-host something like Nextcloud, which is a bit like Google Drive, and then you can click on a document on your browser and edit it right away, nothing to install. And you can edit it collaboratively. So we can imagine the dozen of us editing a document together, but not on Google server or Apple server, but on something that either one of us is hosting. And what I mentioned right after is federated self-hosting, namely one of us is hosting it, maybe also Dini's university is hosting it. We both have a copy of that, so that if my connection drops or whatever, then you can keep on working on it. So there are current solutions on this, where it's not just my server and another server that don't talk to each other, but by being federated, they can talk to each other. And we both have the data, not one of us. And then if, I don't know, I get pissed and I delete the file, then you're in big trouble. So I think federating self-hosting of documents that can be edited, it exists today. It's 2D, so it's kind of boring in that sense. But one could imagine a XR layer on top to say you do the federated self-hosting the backend, basically, that allow us to remain in control of the content. But then we add this kind of XR interactions on top, because we believe indeed it is enriching the process of how to edit those documents. And I think that morally, ethically, I think it is quite empowering. And technically speaking, I think we're quite close also to this kind of implementation. Thank you.
Thank you, Fabienne. I was going to mention what it takes to get grants and to raise money. This grant that we're working with for the past year and a half was $250,000. That is not a lot of money. It's $125 per year, and that's after university takes its cut. And universities always need to do that because they're funded by grants, right? Our grant services, we have people working for Froda and I that we have to pay, and we have to pay them through the university. So if you think about it, we have money for one programmer per year. And I was talking to Froda about this morning. Right now, I'm building a XR environment for the Port of Vancouver. I have 18 people on that project. 4 are programmers, 4 are designers. And as designers, there's UX, UI, multimedia. We have 4 people working on video and animations, and we have 3D modelers. And we have some people doing social media promotions. That's a lot of people, right, to do a project. That's still not enough. I could still use 3 or 4 more people on that project. I had 24 last semester to do a VR project. So what I'm saying, we've had 3 people that have been funded by the grant, one of which is a programmer. It's been an amazing thing. So for you to think through what you're talking about, you're looking at hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I'm guessing that Apple is not building out that spatial persona because it needs a lot more effort than what it currently is imagining. And it's also on the back burner for everything else it can make money on, right? So as you're thinking about these things, thinking about the kind of team you need to do it and how long it's going to take to get to your final result. What Frodo and I really wanted was 3 years and $350,000. And we didn't get that, right? We got it cut back to 2 years.
Well,
And
we
we've
didn't
done
get it yet. Not yet.
Okay, well,
We'll see.
So far, what we got was $250,000 for 2 years. That's what we're working with. And we've done an incredible job, I think, in the 2 years where we are. So I'm not complaining at all. But know that it would have been really nice to have a whole lot of people paid to do this project with us. Just putting it out there for you. Okay, so now we have Tess and Peter.
Oh, I have a quick comment and then a question. My quick comment is that we were talking about when you own the text and being able to keep it local. And in the application that I'm primarily thinking of for the Cube as it helps in the creative writing process, that's a really important concern because some of the things I've been looking at with different LLMs to see who can analyze my text and kind of give me the results that I'm looking for, obviously where my information is going and who then owns it or who then can use it has been a huge concern for me. So in this application that we're talking about where it's your text and you own it and it is on the Cube and other, you're not uploading it to something is a huge concern. So I just wanted to underscore that. My question is, and if this is too off topic, we can table it, or I'm just kind of curious to your point about raising money for the grants. And as you stated, Apple could be making so much money because there's sort of endless applications with these things. And I'm asking purely because I come from a different background, so I don't understand how things work in this world. But you would think that there were, to your point, Apple or other similar companies would want to pour money into funding this sort of thing because there is the opportunity for a lot of money to be made in all of this and like just a lot of different applications. And I'm wondering, is that like saying, can't you get money to make a movie? Is that basically yes.
Let me respond to that. So in the past, we've also had government grants. And so I've gotten lots of government grants, and those are larger. You can get larger grants. Those in the United States have gone away since January, right? And even the $25,000 NSF grant to fund people for hypertext, for graduate students for hypertext, wiped out, gone. And it wasn't a DEI grant at all. It was just a grant to fund graduate students, gone, wiped out. And so there's no more money from the federal government for the kinds of exploratory research projects that we're talking about right now. And so we have Sloan, Mellon, there's just a handful of foundations that fund these kinds of things. And I've managed to go through Society of American Archivists, and there's Andy Warhol Foundation. There's all these other kind of granting foundations out there, but they have very specific purposes. And Sloan and Mellon are basically the only ones out there funding exploratory things. And with the government grants gone, everybody's flooding them with requests right now. So from my perspective, what I think is going to happen is we're going to have to look for private money, private people with funding that want to do a good thing or see some sort of benefit for themselves, a business deal. That's where I think we're moving towards for academic research, exploratory kinds of things, and even a project like the ones we're talking about. So that's the landscape right now, and I've had lots of discussions. I even had a guy come out to see me from Portland with his team of development company, the development office that he gives money out and they vet the projects. He's come out to see me and he sent me a headset. I've got some games from him, but I sat down with his development team, and I'm not talking web dev, I'm talking about money development, people who go out and get money, and they're seeing the same thing I'm seeing. So it's going to be individuals that are funding things. And I know right now I'm funding my own lab pretty much from my own pocket. And so we're having to do this because there's not a lot of money out there. I'm asking these questions to all of you because there's things that I think could be funded and could be interesting to a foundation like Sloan or Mellon or some of the others I'm seeing that are sending things out, because I'm on a listserv with a lot. Every Sunday I get like, here's all the grants that are new. And I go through those every Sunday morning over coffee to see what I can get money for. Like, oh, I can write this one and this one. So I'm collecting that data to see what's next for I mean, I may not be involved in your idea, but I can give you suggestions of where to go for those funds as they come to me. Does that make sense to everybody? That's the beauty of academia. I do get that kind of data on a regular basis. Okay, and then Peter.
Okay. Do you think maybe we could get someone from Ink and Switch to present to the group? They're doing a lot of really interesting back-end work on federated systems, local first kinds of stuff. They also seem to have our same kind of mindset. So I think collaboration with them could be invaluable. Also, maybe we should start thinking about crowdsourcing. Maybe if we describe what we want to do, we could really get a larger number of ordinary end users who miss the days of power users and software that empowered you. I think the whole problem with the industry is it got locked into this holy grail of software as a service where their customers would be trapped forever, sending them monthly subscription fees to use software. So naturally, they want to disempower the end users, so it should be required to continue and maintain your subscription using their system so that they could very slowly dribble out little bits of functionality that you could otherwise build yourself if they gave you a decent open-ended toolkit. So I think that was just a very bad left turn for society that we took on the business of software.
Thank you, Peter. And then Fabian says he does know somebody from that group. Good.
So that's good. We should definitely, I think, invite them. So when it comes to software design, as I said, today I'm releasing version 11 of Author. I've been developing that off my own back for a very long time. I looked for investors, right? And because of my family and friends, I have access to some very rich people, some who are in tech. All of them say, what is your marketing plan? What is your distribution plan? My distribution plan is easy. It's the App Store because it's easiest for user, right? I've been very lucky. Ventus introduced me to the right people. So I have been featured, which is fantastic. You know, number one, lots of download, make okay money. And then Apple puts me on another page and it's gone, right? Because my users are students, I cannot charge a lot. And because I think it's best to sell software, not to do that subscription model, it's very difficult for me to have recurring revenue. So now I'm trying to do pay me $2 a month to use AI, that kind of stuff. But anyway, point is, business is created to make money. Government is created for all kinds of reasons. Let's not waste time on that now. But when the internet happened, and yes, of course, that was that was funded in the beginning. It was the students who just ended up doing it, right? We all know the stories. Questions are, when are the adults and professionals coming in? We are the future of XR. Literally, right? And Fabienne, who is doing the job of 3 or 4 programmers, who is working his entire body off, what he has done is really implement some of that Lego stuff, right? My side of it is really the metadata, as most of you know, especially you, Peter and Mark. Thank you for really helping with this. If you're going to own data, you need to know what the data is. If you're going to use the data, the system needs to know what the data is. If it's important, write it down, don't hide it. Right? These are the key things. To make some kind of a locked-in system is probably not rocket science, but to do something where you have interoperable systems is really, really difficult. The only way it can happen is with a community effort. That is what this entire community is for. That is why we publish the book, so people can be inspired in 10, 50, or 100 years, right? That's why we have the symposium. That's why we have these meetings. So I'm doing this little bit of rant to say, Dini is amazing at getting money. You know, Dini and I with Ismail got the money for this, which has been useful. We're going to continue trying to get money in different ways, but hardly anyone will pay people to do good, because what Tom was talking about earlier, and we had our very constructive argument over, you know, we both agree on the spectrum. People who are good at one thing are not good at another. And my hard-won experience, this is not rocket science, is if you're really good with administration, you become a boss at a university. It's got nothing to do with whether you're good at teaching, right? If you're really good at teaching, you don't necessarily become a big boss at a university. Same thing with on the financial side, which is my family background. If you're really good at making money, you're really good at making money. You're not necessarily good at painting or writing or anything else. So what we're trying to do here, they don't effing get it. And we shouldn't expect them to effing get it. right? And so what is so exciting about what we have built in this particular project so far is, first of all, it's real. You know, we've all heard the advice, half of success is showing up, right? We have showed up, we have built a thing. It is a real thing, and thanks to Mark, it is real data. That is absolutely important. So one of the, Dini, one second, I'm as excited as you are on this. One of the things we're going to do after we've done with the SEM demo, it may be the cube, it may be not, but the idea is, my brother is a theater person, director, actor, and all of that. He inspires me sometimes. What we want to build next is theater, right? We want to build something, you put the headset on, and you see these things, you can do these things. And to be honest, I don't really care what the functions are. Over time, that has to matter, but you have to feel in the few minutes you're in there, holy moly, if they could just do blah, blah, this could be an amazing thinking space. And that's something entirely within our reach and our dialogue. And thank you for letting me scream this from the top of the tiny mountain. Dini, please, please.
Just to respond to that and what's in the chat, if you think about it, what Sloan funded was not a product, right? Not a product. It was an exploration. If at the end of this we have nothing to show but just commentary about things not working and why and blah, 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 they would have been fine. So organizations like foundations will fund explorations. Businesses, individuals generally want results. They want money out of it. So you have to think about, is it marketable for this group or that group? So who's your audience and what is it they're looking for, right? And in this case, with the Sloan Foundation, they really wanted this to be a non-business organized project that had nothing to do with making money. It was really about just thinking, just imagining the possibilities. And that's rare that you get these opportunities. Okay, Mark, and welcome back, Mark.
Hi.
Can I mention Mark is now a fellow in my lab as of this morning.
Well,
Jolly good fellow at that.
So actually, Dini's point is really interesting in a sense that one of the, what made me stick my hand up was thinking about this fact that, you know, I don't actually think we're fighting against the publishers or the man. And I well recall somebody who came to, was it Future of Text, about 17, I think, who described themselves as coming from, I think, Elsevier's Skunk Works, you know, and what stuck in my mind was just how open-minded he was about informationally what would make things better. And I'm thinking, dang, we should be talking to people like that far more, because I don't think there is necessarily a fight against some publishing and things. We're not fighting publishing. We're basically in a fight against the horse and buggy people, and we're in the automobile business, and it's no one's intent, but the two things don't mesh. And we all choose to blame one another for having the wrong tech or the wrong approach. That's not really it. But the people who are in the horse and buggy business have you know, but they can make you any horse and buggy you want as long as you can describe it. And we're sort of saying we don't want that, which is problematic because it doesn't actually help them move forward in the sense of publishing, where so digital native documents, as so Dini well preaches on, they're there now. I mean, it's happened. The problem is the world is not caught up with that. So we're having the wrong fight about the wrong thing. And it's just stunning now just how hard it is to do any sort of informational work, even in something you think as obvious as, say, academic work and sort of doing things like tracing citation and stuff. It's garbage built on garbage, built on garbage, built on garbage, through no one's intent. I really just stress that. Through no one's intent, but it's still garbage. And so you can stand on the top of the garbage and say, I see no problem. Or you can say, well, maybe we can do better. So I just throw that out there to say that, I mean, so one of the really interesting things to me about in context of the Sloan Grant stuff about XR is the ability to step outside all this old tech and say, wait a minute, can we see useful things in it? And then to loop back and say, okay, well, fine, we can see how that might be needed. Can we find the information to do that? And instead of sitting around manking about, oh, it's too hard or it's not my job, saying, well, it's just damn well. So we know what we need. Let's do it. We broadly have the information, and we spend far too much time arguing about whose job it is or who's going to pay. And I think that's to humanity's loss. Thank you.
And we have Fabienne, hand up. This has been a great discussion, by the way. Very, very helpful.
Hopefully, I won't spoil that. The idea there is not to get money, but how to potentially spend it. So how the different yes, it would be I was mentioning before, like file formats and how to have another color and all that, and federated self-hosted document management. One trick or one way to do it, to spend it, would be to say, for example, we do either a competition or a hackathon or something like this, and there is some prize money for it. For example, the first filter, let's imagine that docx is supported, and the winner of, based on how we evaluate it, we get, let's say, 10,000, the second get 2,000, the third get 500 or something like this. That might be a way, of course, to get the way to import filters themselves, being open source, also how to compose that and to learn from how it's been done. And because also it would not be done by anybody in the project currently, but by other people and us, that would force to make sure it is actually generally interoperable and like proper building blocks, let's say, not just prototypes. So I think that might be an interesting way. I don't know how feasible that would be, but yeah, that might be a way to get a lot more content, and also people interested in it to see how they can contribute to.
I will say that years ago, back in the 80s, I had a company that I was doing design work, and I was designing packaging. Anyway, I had somebody that wanted to invest in the company with me. Thank God I didn't give her more than my percentage, but she ended up trying to go to my clients and get them behind my back. And so I shut the business down. But that was back in the 80s. It was really heartbreaking to see her going to Neiman Marcus and Bloomingdale's and trying to get my business from me. So you have to be very careful about who you work with and how you set up your contracts. Anyway. Okay, Jimmy, hi, glad to see you. I can't hear you. I think you're muted.
Yeah, sorry, I was in another window looking for a video screenshot that I had taken some months ago, and I'm just noticing, out of frustration, I have on this particular machine's directory about 3,500 pieces of media assets that I have to go scroll through to try and find what I'm looking for, and it should be much easier in an XR environment. I think it would be, and what I was looking for was a South by Southwest interview with Tim Berners-Lee, who had a very interesting statement in it where he said, when asked about what the really early days of the internet were like, and he said it was one of the hardest things was not having the vocabulary to really explain what was happening with it, what they were building, because it was a new system of communication that hadn't been produced. Even hyperlinks weren't invented by that time, for instance. This was, kind of the first bells and whistles, the first building blocks of it. And I feel like there's maybe that kind of stage in XR where we are. We were talking about the horse and buggy stage, and there is that phase where the new technology takes on the shape and form of the old technology. So you had the horseless cart for a long time, where they just built cars to look like carriages because that's what people knew how to make the infrastructure for, and that's what people were used to. And then you found a way to loosen up the affordances that you were able to use with a a new engine and without a horse, and all of that started to reshape itself around there, and that's still happening. And this is why this project and what you guys are doing is still at that kind of it. We're trapped in a lot of the forms of what it looked like to do what we're doing before you were able to deal with a three-dimensional environment of organizing and working with information. And I think we're all still kind of at this early vocabulary formulation phase of it, where it's kind of it's great because there's a lot of new frontier out there, and that is in my opinion an investable untilled fertile ground space, or you don't know where the ground's fertile, but you can plant a lot and there's a lot of room to explore. So I still think there's nothing more stronger than an idea whose time has come. And I think if you find that right idea and it's out there, it's about connecting that with the VC academia, with all of the very a proven idea. If you can just get some early stage proving, I think it's easy to find the rest of the solution in terms of the business case. So anyway, I hope you guys are doing that, and it
You're talking about
space.
remediation, and that's typical, and I think that's definitely what happens over the generations of textual development, right? But what's also interesting is the first thing we grab for is schematic, because we're comfortable with schematic design. And what I think we've been trying to do in our project, Jimmy, you might have noticed, is just kind of move away from, that kind of expected, oh, we have a desk, we have a picture on the wall. We're trying to move away from that so that there's a bit of a breadcrumb, but not completely. Oh, I'm in a museum now. I see pictures on the wall. I mean, we're trying to move away from that kind of remediation. It's been very mindful that we've avoided it. So thank you for that comment. Tess, and then Froda.
Thank you. I just wanted to echo Jimmy's point about the language. I do another AI group that mostly talks about, we touch on some ethical issues, but we also just talk on what applications are out there and how we're using them and what's servicing our needs. And one of the subjects that's come up is being able to have a vocabulary to discuss things. I mean, as someone who works in language and loves the study of language, it's really fascinating to me. But and I think, again, to some of the points that are being made here, we contextualize new things in old paradigms because we don't know what the new paradigm is yet. And that's how we try to understand them. But one of the discussions we had last week was how important the new language is to trying to raise awareness with people overall. In our case, one of the frames that came up was engagement farming, and how chatbots are, being programmed to keep you there as long as possible. And so these are valuable terms, and I think that it's an interesting application, and it's the future of text, right? Which is words. So how is it that we need to invent and create new language to help the society understand what's happening and help ourselves conceptualize what's next?
That's right. Thank you, Tess. Rhoda?
That's relevant to what I was going to say, also based on what Fabian was saying. And as all of you know, because I've mentioned it a billion times, so Doug Engelbart was kind of my mentor and friend. And he has a lot of things that you all studied many better than me. But there's one thing that is so relevant to what we're talking about, in that the only time Doug ever made any progress, made any headway, was when he did a demo. He wrote powerful papers, he had powerful people, he got funding directly from Washington. Nothing happened, right? When he did one in Ann Arbor, a demo early on, and the way he did it was mock-ups, right? We all know the adage, don't tell them, show them, right? It really comes down to that. And that's why we're so grateful for what we're doing here. We're doing a show them. And so far, in developing a language, Jimmy, yeah, that's going to be difficult. And when you are in the space and do one of the most basic things Fabian has done, when you import from outside, so let's say you've made a knowledge map, whatever generic stuff, and then you put it in, you see it big, that's nice. But when you then pick up a piece of text and you move it there, it is a profound moment. Fabian doesn't like me talking about this too much, I think, because it is simple. Fabian wants to push himself and do all kinds of experiments and prototypes, and that's great. But just having enough people do these things, right, extending their minds in this new way, and for us to use our experience to go further with that, that is the only way to get the attention of people. Because, you know, I started with this at the end of my PhD, which isn't that long ago, because I couldn't afford the brain space to think about VR or AI. It just wouldn't fit. So thank God Brendel came in, who's not here today, but you know, he's here, and pushed us into this space. But so much of what we've been talking about over the last few years, with the exception of Deanie, because she's had real experience, it's been absolute rubbish. One of the first things I wanted to do in space was to have an index card from Carl Linnaeus, because we had a future of text at the Linnaean Society. He was one of the first people to use index cards for knowledge organization, and then connected with a line to another one. So we built a really rough, horrible demo, but at least we had an index card and we had a line. That line was very, very unpleasant. It felt like a washing line that was in my face. Right? These are the things we can't know until we built it. So I'm sorry for going on and on yet again, but all I'm saying is we've got to keep building and testing. And Fabian has put things up on our Future Text Lab website, whether you have a this or that headset. Please go in. If there's anything that's a bit weird, please write it down. It may be you, probably not. Maybe the system, but got to keep making to make it.
Some things to think about, because I think about this a lot, because I'm always looking for funding, right? Constantly. It's what happens when you have a research lab. It's always the forefront of your mind, how I'm going to fund this next project. Who do I need on the team? How am I going to pay them? Those are the questions you ask. The difference between Doug Engelbart's time period and today is that America was in a huge buildup, industrial complex buildup, and there was money flowing for tech, especially computer technology. It was amazing. I just think about what it'd be like today if we had that kind of environment, right? We would just be like rolling in money. Even in the .com, before the .com crash, the organization that I'm part of, the Electronic Literature Organization, had so much money coming in from people, investors who were just donating, not asking for anything in return. That died after the .com crash, and we have not seen it return. But entities like Research Park and others, these research centers still existed and did incredible work. And Basamo at Research Park more recently, in I guess the last 20 years. But now those centers, that center of energy and excitement has moved to Europe. Those centers are not existing in the United States right now. And so, it's because there's no funding for it. And I would say that the organizations that do give money are giving it for human resources issues, helping the poor, water, the basic needs, the fundamental needs of the country. We're not seeing the innovation for technology coming from individuals, and it's now in Europe. So I would tell all of you to look seriously at organizations, centers in Europe that might be able to partner with you. And this is going to last for quite a while till we get some energy back in the States. But there's no money here. And universities are, I mean, even Harvard, MIT, my university's in R1, we had a 9.8% cut across our campus, which is devastating. And so there's no money for even speakers and travel. I have no travel money this year. So that's the state of the universities and research centers in the US right now. That's why when the BBC article came out several months ago, and it was re-released this weekend, that talked about the lab, and I'm getting all these emails from people. What I want is someone to say, "Hey, I'll give you some funds." I've got plenty of computers now. I need funding. So this is where we are, just to tell you. But we have such a cool project, and there's so many cool projects you've talked about. There's got to be a place for them to be funded. Froda?
Just like to ditto every single thing Dini said. I see here Peter saying we need a Sputnik moment. So I understand where you're coming from, Peter, and I agree with you. But to be an advocate for the opposites, I don't like the word. This should come from the people, right? There are certain things in the world right now that people don't agree with. No need to discuss because they're all different. But there is a lot of different things people have hugely different opinions on, and that's fine. But if we value our intellectual liberty, we need to work on how to express it. One of the things is this community. We need more communities like this. This is not the boss community. It's just a tiny little thing. And believe it or not, we need to be able to share documents. It goes back to those kinds of practical things. And, I have dedicated both reader and author, both commercial products, to feed data into the Sloan thing in a very open way. We should all try to do that. If we have our own little or big tools, if we can interchange things, that's really, really powerful. But what I'm really saying is the citizens need to be armed with better information tools. It's really, really important. If you look at any kind of a revolution, and we need a knowledge revolution now. Do we all agree with that? A revolution, how we deal with our knowledge?
We need a revolution in a lot of things.
That's certainly what I've been working toward.
Yeah,
I think
Tom, absolutely you have.
I think more a revolution in our individualized behavior, but that is difficult to do without that knowledge. Something we've seen here in the past 2 weeks that kind of took everyone by surprise is Hank Green and like two of his friends made an app, and it is now the #1 app on the App Store in the US. And the only thing this app does is you open it up, you set a timer, and it keeps you from using your phone until the timer is up. And you can interrupt the timer and use your phone if it's an emergency, but the little bean, the little thing that is doing its task for as long as the timer is going, just makes a sad face when you cancel it early. And that's it. That's all the app does is it sets a timer and it doesn't let you use your phone.
Yep.
And people have flocked to this because it has helped them or made them realize how much time they're spending on their phone or how much they utilize it, how much they pick it up, and how unproductive they are when they have access to it. And just this little bean making a sad face is enough to dupe people's empathy to get them to not use their phone when they pick it up and they're busy doing something else. And that has pushed it amazingly above ChatGPT as the #1 app on the US App Store, which is alarming, but it speaks to how we need to have knowledge and to change our individualized behavior because of the algorithmic information and the way we tend to run our daily lives when interfacing with tech.
Absolutely, Carl, and thank you. And the question here from Tess, asking very kindly, what kind of revolution are we talking about with knowledge? So I am an incredible optimist. I mean, I'm sitting here looking at a flat thing in my office at the back of the house, and there are 10 incredible people. You spent an hour and a half here with us. For that to happen, that you cannot be a pessimist and have something like that happen. It's incredible that you guys are here. So to properly answer the question, I have a son, he's 8 years old, most of you know him, Edgar, and I have the chance to influence him to a degree, not entirely, we're not all product of our parents, obviously, in all kinds of morality, ethics. Is partly why we went to the carnival. I wanted him to feel safe in a very different environment that he's used to. These are the things we can do one-on-one. He goes to a religious school, and we may or may not agree with religion, but at least they discuss ethics and morality, right? That stuff, as some people call the human side, the spiritual side, is absolutely vital. I don't think that me as an individual can get to a scale of that. I'm not some kind of a messiah, but what I do strongly believe is a connected thing of #1, writing is thinking. And writing is very, very hard. So the reason I've invested in building and owning the name author, which is incredible that tiny little me can own, is to help people. And as I say at the very last slide in the App Store, writing is hard. We are not going to pretend otherwise. But if we can, through muddling through, provide different means to help people structure their writing, it means structure their thinking. Some people are naturals at it. There are some academics I can see writing on a plain piece of paper, everything is in their mind. My brain doesn't work like that. So if more people can better deal through external means, through whatever things we're building, I really think that the conclusion of that will be a better world, because I think it will increase connection with other people, which is basically what we need. Less us and them, more empathy. What does empathy come from? It comes from a shared point of view. A point of view, as Mark Anderson reminds us, is a view spec in a technical sense, but it's also why we read a novel. It's to understand someone else's brain, right? So whatever means we're doing, whether it's fiction or making a tool or whatever, I honestly think that just helping people think will make the world a better place, because people are not inherently evil bastards who hate each other. We're not. So let's just help that be unleashed.
All right, we'll let Frode say the last thing, and that was great pep talk. Thank you, Frode. I do need to go to my labs meeting. We have a meeting every week at 10, so I'm going to bug off now and turn this over to Frode to moderate for those of you who want to stay after 10 o'clock.
Yeah, no, we're going to close in 5 minutes. I also have to go. We have the exciting situation of my wife's auntie from Japan. She's here. So that's a big deal, taking her around Wimbledon, and it's different cultures coming in. Of course, she's been here. Of course, she knows these things, but it's not exactly Japan level, everything we experience. Anyway, Peter, please.
Yeah, if you scroll back in the chat, I left a link to an absolutely wonderful 1975 keynote by Ray Bradbury that I highly commend everyone's attention.
Would you mind reposting it so it's at the bottom?
Okay, let me do that. One sec.
Thank you. So okay, since Dini was so kind, I get the last word unless someone has a comment. I went to Syracuse University, upstate New York, had a professor there who was absolutely wonderful, Ed Leahy, who passed away 2 years ago. Afterwards, we became friends, and he was very supportive of the work we do here. And he kept asking, okay, so what is the future of text? And I would always waffle on with this and that and all kinds of nonsense. And then one day, not long after he passed, I realized the future of text is simply continuously asking the question, what is the future of text? That is what we're doing. And people are driven by different things. Like, I don't care about competitive sports. I know some of you don't either. We have very different brains, humans. It's something as an adult I finally have to accept, being a Norwegian kind of socialist background person. We are of the same value, but we are not the same the way we look at the world, right? And in this community, even though we're all kind of nerdy, it sometimes comes to the surface, which is fantastic. So now we really need more people. And Tess, you are the newest, so very grateful that you're here. And all of you, if you have any friends who might want to come in here and wonder what nonsense this is, please, 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 so we can do more stuff. I mean, look, okay, Fabienne, you're still here properly, right?
Indeed, I am.
So a difference between Fabienne and me that's come really to the forefront recently is I've been in getting author ready to be used by people. So I've been in polish mode. Fabienne hates polish. It's actually quite funny. But it's been very, very instructional to see his incredible intellect and ability to do prototypes is probably fueled by a creative side that once you come to, washing the walls just won't do it. I get it, right? And that's fun, and it's a respectful difference to notice. Like Mark Anderson, I'll send him an article, what do you think? And he won't tell me what he thinks until everything is corrected, right? It's Mark, and I say, yes, you will send it back with every comment, check every citation. We really need to harness this. Oh,
If I may, I only correct things that don't make sense. So I correct them because I can't understand what's meant. I don't try and correct everything. I just want to make that point. I only correct the things that are actually nonsensical, so I can't understand what the author meant.
no, exactly. And it was meant as a compliment. Please make the record show. What I mean is that, well, okay, my father, who did very well in a business environment, one of his great skills was he didn't accept any bullshit at all. So he would have these MBAs coming into the office and saying all kinds of fancy things, and he would have the ability to say, I don't get it. And that's exactly what you're doing, Mark. In a loving and respectful way, I just don't understand this. And if we manage, all of us, to keep that going as a very positive thing, and even say, I'm sorry, my brain doesn't work like this, we may better understand how to make it for someone else. I mean, yeah, it's just, we got to keep implementing, and the only way to implement is to understand each other a bit better. So on that note, let's just have a quick look at our website calendar. So we have Patrick Lichty on the 1st of September, so far open office on the 8th. And then we have ACM Hypertext on the 25th, where Mark and Dini will show off what Fabienne has built and that we've all designed together. And then the week after that, it'll be a debrief of that. So we'll be going through, and the feedback will be presented, which will be good. And then Fabienne will be talking about web browser engineering and so on. Also, and Fabienne, I need to know, are you joining me on the 14th of October in somewhere in Europe?
Potentially, I need to see again logistically if it's possible.
Okay, because I need to ask if you can come in for free. It's the World Usability Forum, and it's purely because of Bruce Horn that I've been invited to present, and I will be presenting kind of an overarching version of what we've been doing, and so on. Right, what's that, Carl? You should be presenting in Brussels in December. Well, that's very, very good. At least one of us will be in Brussels then. At the very minimum, I expect to be able to go across too. It's kind of easy. Any other final thoughts or issues today? I see Rob has been looking extremely thoughtful for quite a while, but is it related to this?
Yes.
Well, that's good. And Rob is the winner of the first article submission for the book. Thank you. The only problem with the book submission that he sent, and this is not a joke, some of it is going to be difficult to typeset because it's in cuneiform. So I've downloaded several fonts, Rob, to experiment with how to
Peter thinks that's funny.
Yeah. There are no real book deadlines yet, but the way it works, Tom, is the books need to be published in the year. So as long as we get it into Amazon, which is our kind of publisher of record because it's simple, because that means that in the future people can check that it was indeed that year. We want everyone to have the articles by the Future of Tech Symposium in November in London, because then we have more to discuss. Not discussed, discuss. So yeah, but that really varies. Okay, you're getting into very nerdy stuff in the chat. I love you all. I look forward to seeing you in the week, and thank you so much for today. Bye, everyone.